Stay with us. Senegal's president has vowed to abide by the law and to not extend his mandate beyond April 2nd. Now, Macky Sall, who is wrapping up 2 terms in office, postponed the presidential poll for 10 months, citing unresolved disputes over who could run. But his move was struck down by the Constitutional Court as illegal. He spoke on Thursday, that's February 22nd, on live television. Sall's clarification comes after the ruling coalition voted to extend his rule in early February. Now, joining me on the program to discuss this is Imo Edet, public affairs analyst, joining from Dakar, Senegal. Imo, thank you so much for your time. You would say interesting times in Senegal. What do you make of the recent statement by the president saying that irrespective of the postponement of the polls, he will step down, as when the law requires? Edet, can you hear me?
I think I can hear you now. Yes, I think I can hear you now. My network was breaking.
Okay, great. Thank you for joining the program. Now, what do you make of the president's statement saying that he would step down regardless of when the election holds, particularly as stated by the law?
Well, I must say that not all people were pleased by his comment from the dialogue we had with some media houses yesterday, because most of what people expected was for him to just announce the date for the new election and not to call for a dialogue. And that really has prompted, 6 out of the 9 candidates refusing, I beg your pardon, 16 out of the 19 candidates refusing to take part of that dialogue, which is supposed to start on Monday. He wasn't really straightforward. All people wanted to hear what was the next line of action. Is this election going to take place before April 2? And if that happens, what are the modalities? What are the things, on ground? And so he wasn't really, forthcoming as regards information to that. And that was why he proposed for a 2-day dialogue, which starts on Monday and ends on Tuesday, hoping that all the stakeholders, including the presidential candidates, the CSO, state actors, all of them will be part of that dialogue to finalize and agree on a date which, they can have the election.
What do you see? Right now the opposition obviously are not comfortable with the body language of the president. What do you suspect as the next line of action, particularly from the opposition?
Well, obviously, their tool here has been to hit the street protests, cause some damages, and make his government ungovernable as it is. Now there are over 40 CSOs that have formed a group, and particularly one, Asunu, they call them Asunu in the Wolof language, which means protect the election. They have clearly stated today that they won't be part and they will not take part in any dialogue organized by the president. All they want is the president to give them a date for the election and let election hold. The other point is, come April 2, the president also mentioned that he will step down. And stepping down, which will mean an interim government come into place. And people are now looking at either, because they haven't been in this situation before. This is the first time. This is the first time since 1960 Senegal will be finding itself in this kind of situation. And so they are expecting maybe the head of the parliament may take over in interim and organize an election. But clearly, what the CSOs, the opposition, and a large part of the population want is for President Macky Sall to step down on April 2. And really, I really doubt, because a lot of people are not too confident in his responses in terms of agreeing to step down on that day. So we'll wait to see. Most likely, there'll be more protests in the coming days, now that the Asuni election and the rest of them are refusing to be part of the dialogue.
The reason the president actually gave for the postponement of the election is unresolved disputes over who could run and all of that. Now, looking at this reason, do you think that there's actually more to this than meets the eye? Do you think the president actually has maybe some tricks up his sleeves?
Well, he does have some tricks, I must say, and he's a very smart politician. He's been able to do a couple of things: take off the opposition main strongman, Usman Sonko, and Jumai Fai, who is supposed to represent Sonko in the polls. And then, of course, like you said, it could be tricky. I mean, people feel he may want to say this as some way of specifying the population, not to cause some trouble and allow him to extend his stay. But clearly, like as mentioned, April is the deadline. And in 2 days from now, if the election was still on course, they would have gone to the polls. Everything has been, on ground. And another point which you raise is that for the candidates, which he gave as an excuse to postpone the election, it wasn't really justified because they have the Constitutional Council, that screens all of the candidates, and whatever issues that may have cropped up within that process, a section of their constitution takes care of that. So he has nothing to do, in making out a decree postponing the election. Ordinarily, the constitution takes care of all of that. Whatever issues emanating from the electoral process, from the screening process, from the candidature process, there are provisions for it in the constitution, in the Senegalese constitution, to take care of that. So perhaps President Macky Sall only did that to see if he were able to extend his stay as postulated by some here in Senegal.
I would like us to go back to what the president actually did say, in particular as regards stepping down. I mean, you have it on your screen. It said, having been sworn on April 2nd, 2019, 2nd of April 2024 completes the 5-year calendar. So that's the end of the mandate, and I intend to stop at this mandate. After the 2nd of April, I intend to step down as president of the Republic. Now, my question to you is this. Now, that space, should the elections not happen anytime soon, that space between when, let's say 10 months, as of course given.
15,
yeah. What would happen to the affairs of the state? How do you suspect it will be piloted?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, this is the first time Senegal is finding itself in this kind of mess. It has never happened. Every president at the end of his tenure leaves power, for another, but this is the first time. And so it's a little bit complicated for them here. And they are only now relying on prosecutors, the Constitutional Council to interpret whatever will happen between now until when another election will be conducted.
But does this set some sort of precedence? Maybe dangerous precedents, that might snowball into something that at the end of the day maybe would have a domino or ripple effect on the political landscape.
No. We may not have. I know where you're driving to. There won't be a coup in the country, because they have that part of the how will I put it now? The elements are being taken care of.
How?
But the most
How
important
are they taken
thing
care
is,
of?
well, because they really don't meddle into political affairs here. The only time you will find them on the street is when the situation gets out of hand. And the French system is really different from what we do in Nigeria, Ghana, and the rest. Aside the police, they have the gendarmeries who usually come out when there is a protest. And in the case it goes out of hand, that's when the military will come on the street. But we haven't seen them. I've been here for some time, and I've not really seen them. You can't see them. They are nowhere. They are in their bar. You can't see them. It's not like Nigeria or Ghana where you see a soldier mounted. No, you can't see them. You can't. They have the gendarmeries and they have the police to take care of all of these civil issues. So I don't think it will snowball into that. But what I am hoping is that maybe on Monday, when the dialogue will start, or between now and then, there will be enough conviction for the civil society groups, for the 16 political candidates to be part of that conversation, because that conversation is really key to the stability of this country. If it doesn't hold, then there will be trouble in the coming days. But like I mentioned, April 2, the president will step down. He will hand over to the leader of the parliament, which is the alternative in the constitution, and then he can now organize the election. What the people don't want to see is Macky Sall extending his stay as the president of the republic. If he does that, then there will be a problem. Part of what he mentioned was to release, political prisoners like Osman Sonko, Jemai Fai, and the rest of them, who he didn't want to see, in the ballot papers, and he succeeded in taking them out completely. And so even if he doesn't run a third term, but he's also happy that Osman Sonko is not running in this election. And maybe before he will run in the next 10 to 15 years thereabout.
Now, talking about Usman Sonko, of course, who was a major opposition, right now seems to be out of the race. In terms of opposition, what do you think the people are looking at as a potential replacement for the president?
Well, there is a young man known as Jemai Fai, is relatively young, and he is seen as a deputy to Osman Sonko. And so Osman Sonko, for wherever he is always making videos, charging the public, the population to support him, to see Jemai Fai as, Osman Sonko and support him, vote for him and all of that. So, but, the other amusing thing is that this same Jemai Fai, which we are talking about, is also in prison. So it will be difficult. Both of them are in prison. So how will you vote for somebody who still has some cases to answer at the court? So it's really tricky. He's really been able to play that well, take off the opposition. And what we have are just a couple of the CSOs come together, form some groups, political candidates and their supporters and their parties and that. But right now, you can't really point the finger to say this is the main opposition. This is the main opposition. No. I mean, everybody's scattered. I mean, Usman Sonko has been taken off, except maybe if he's released before the next election, then, the trend or the dynamics may change before the elections.
All right. Now, let's look at, of course, our international bodies mediating in this particular issue happening right now in Senegal, the likes of the African Union and, of course, United Nations and the rest. Do you think enough is being done by international organizations and even countries, to help sort of resolve this political impasse happening in Senegal?
Well, one thing I know about Senegal is it's a country of dialogue. I mean, wherever and whenever there is a political crisis or issue, they always come to the round table to talk. And, the round table will include religious leaders, both the Catholics, all the different Muslim sects in the country, political actors, CSOs, they all come together and resolve the issue. Interference or words from international community, yes, they've been support, they've been calls, for a peaceful election to happen. They've been calls, especially recently we've seen ECOWAS being proactive, releasing statements back and forth as regards, the new date for the election. Of course, we've also heard from the African Union. It was also part of the issue discussed during the last, the 37th AU summit in Addis Ababa. So international communities are really concerned about how the entire political drama is playing out here. And everybody's just waiting for the ultimate dialogue, which happens next week, to know if a date will be picked. And then we don't know what will happen. I mean, we just don't know what will happen. We don't know what will happen. We don't know if, because now 16 kind of saying they won't be part of the election. It may be worrying. It may be really, really worrying. Except, I mean, the president on Monday said, okay, look, let's have the election in March. But earlier in the week, most of the candidates were saying that they want the election to hold between the 2nd of March and the 12th of March, between 2nd and 12th of March, so that if there are issues or there will be issues, that can be sorted out before April 2. Right. So there is very little the international community, can really do at this point. I mean, they've released statement, they've called on the president, and he has heard them, and that's why he's calling for a political dialogue.
All right, thank you so much for your contribution on the program. Imo Edet, Public Affairs Analyst, joining from Dakar, Senegal. Once again, appreciate.
Thank you for having me.
All right. And that's a wrap on today's episode of the program. It's important we also state that the opinions of our guest remains theirs and not that of News Central. My name is Dapo Adigboye. Leadership is about responsibility. Bye for now.